In your Volvo lights lit up green and white, with your seas on the sign. But you held your course for some distant war in the corners of your mind. And the second time around, the only love I ever found, oh, is the last
It was the second to last night of my road trip from Utah to Alaska and back. I had set up camp in southern Idaho a few miles away from the interstate, and I had woken from my sleep. I left my tent, and as I looked up at the stars above me, I knew I had been changed. There were more of them there than I had ever seen, and my memory was already rich with starry skies. There was no evidence for this change. It was just something I understood in the quiet summer night while I lay back on the grass and felt the gentle breeze on my face. Quiet moments are often the most profound. I couldn't pinpoint exactly when it happened, but some moments tend to stick out. The freedom of the first few days in which I had felt it was a miracle this was finally happening. The loss of self I felt as Paulo Coelho's The Alchemist consumed me on winding roads. The great Canadian Rockies and Banff stretching my sense of wonder past its limits. The calm, actionable fear that told me to keep playing guitar for the black bear as he grazed next to me. The disciplined library visits that told me each time my poem wasn't done until it was. The friend I wrote the poem for traveled 3,500 miles to see how her existence makes the world a brighter place and how she teaches me about love. The 6 days spent in Homer, Alaska, and being cradled through 2 of them in the darkness of my mind between the hillside and the mountains across the bay. Saying goodbye to the ocean of that sun-kissed place like a lover and a worshiper. Talking myself through a 2-hour debrief of the last 2 years of my life. Sleeping through a Montana thunderstorm that sounded like God's wrath, and finding her face in the stars the next night. Somewhere in there, it happened, and when I go back to my old ways, they scream at me a little bit louder because beneath old patterns, and despite lies I tell myself, my foundation is no longer the same. This change does not require me to find proof. This change is not represented in the actions I take. This change is an understanding of the world and myself, which makes the town I come back to more familiar, the house I come back to rarer, the people I come back to brighter, and the sunsets I come back to supreme. I could tell the story of these moments, or I could tell the story of how they changed me. As unfamiliar and as challenging as this may be, please bear with me while I attempt to do the latter. I have talked before on this channel about my long history of struggling with mental health, which at some point or another managed to touch every aspect of my life. What I have been able to accomplish on a day-to-day basis was often done with about 50% or less of my energy, and the rest would be used to satiate my depression. This percentage has slowly increased throughout the years. It's higher now, and used to be much lower than 50%, but I'm only mentioning this history as it pertains to the trip. I am aware that when I, as the kids say, lock in, I can dedicate all of my life force to just that, life. I have done this at different intervals in recent years, sometimes regular, sometimes erratic, and I knew I would be demanding this and pushing myself to do more than before by going on my road trip. At any point, I could have gotten overwhelmed, but running from problems is really not a valid option while on the road alone. Comfort and safety are not inherent during any step of the journey. You can find a safe place to camp, but if you need more food, you will need to leave it. You can find a good meal to eat, but afterwards, you are not welcome in the restaurant. There is no land that belongs to you, and you are a guest wherever you go. Instead, comfort and safety come from good decisions, a sense of direction, and an organized car, all of which require work to maintain. An illusion that dictated my daily life before is that I rely on lethargic, depressive episodes to recuperate, otherwise life is simply too much. It's not true. Anytime there is more life to be had, it is a good thing, and the reason I prevent myself from chasing it is only fear. This trip consisted of approximately 25 days of distilled life with very few breaks. This meant from the second I woke up to the second I closed my eyes at night, I was staring into the oncoming stream of experiences with nowhere to look away and nowhere to hide. At times it was exhausting, at times it was exhilarating, and I was exposed to it long enough to find out what I was capable of. During one day, on my trip up, I woke just north of the Montana-Canada border, drove an hour to a rest stop near a glacial river, and made myself oats for breakfast with oat milk, peanut butter, banana, and cinnamon. I stocked up on supplies and replaced the ice in my cooler. I found a spot on some grass where the sun was still drinking up the dew from the night before, and set my mat down to do some yoga. I started with some basic poses, but then was surprised when my body remembered a flow from a recent yoga class I had taken. It felt good to move my body in this way, and to celebrate, I practiced my headstand at the end. Afterwards, I drove down to the glacial river and took a dip. It was my first cold plunge of the trip, and my body was yelling at me, but I knew that this was what I wanted. I washed off and went through my self-grooming routine. After a morning like this, I felt a part of the natural world, risen like the sun itself. I got into the car and started a 3-hour drive to Banff National Park. I started with a good album, and then continued my listening of The Alchemist, which I had begun the previous day. In the story, the boy grew to understand the language of the universe, while in real life, I drove through the Kootenay mountain range. I was unable to see the height of the cliffs that sheltered me, but I could see the boy and the alchemist in my mind's eye as they set off into the desert. After many bends and climbs on the road, I looked out from the Kootenays to the park ranges. Here, the story had reached a climax. I knew the beauty that was written in the book because it was also written before my eyes. The boy, Santiago, touched the soul of the world, and as he became the wind, I felt that I too could perform miracles. As grand as this moment was, I did still need to do the menial task of making sure my car did not veer off the side of the road, and that it would eventually reach its destination. I made my way to Lake Louise campground, settled into my spot, ate lunch while finishing the book, and figured out what I would do with the rest of the day. I planned to go on a trail run, return with enough time to grocery shop, and prepare for my night of backpacking tomorrow. From my campsite, it was 30 minutes to Lake Louise. It was as serene as anything can be, with hundreds of people on its shores. I looked up and wanted more. On the right, there was a dramatic rock outcropping named the Hive, and on the left, there was something bigger. Before spending too long on the decision, my legs took me left. An hour and a half later, I was at the top of Fairview Mountain. I will not attempt to describe the view. I made my way down, heart beating at a steady pace, and got to my campsite with 4 hours left in the day to grocery shop, pack, make dinner, and maybe relax. Definitely relax. I took 2.5 milligrams of a marijuana edible. I then forgot some things on my first grocery list. It had more to do with my fatigue than my high. I also forgot some things on my second grocery list. It had more to do with my high than my fatigue. I did not make a third grocery list. I took another 2.5 milligrams, made a cold dinner, and played guitar to calm myself down. There were families all around me, and I desperately wished to play for one of my own. Instead, it was for myself and walkers by. I was happy with my rendition of Landslide, and as I was settling into my hammock for the night, I wrote this poem. Damn, a long day. Like damn, what a life. Like damn, what a blessing it is to be this tired. Like damn, I did all that. In what amount of time? Damn, I'm a badass. Like damn, I'm a person who does things they're proud of. Like damn, it hasn't always been this way. Damn, what a journey. But damn, I guess that's what makes life exciting. Turns out I was capable of a lot. Not every day was like this, yet it was fundamentally the same as any other. I woke up, I lived life, I fell asleep. For 24 hours, I was completely immersed in each moment, and not once did I feel limited by my beliefs. In day-to-day life, I often assume that this occurrence is a rare thing, and in my assumption, I limit myself already. There is so much abundance to be had if we simply open ourselves up to it. Abundance in self, in opportunities, in resources, and in each other. A week after that lively day, I arrived at my terminal destination, Homer, Alaska. The abundance in the community gathered there was undeniable. On the first day in Homer, I unpacked at my Airbnb and headed over quickly to the wedding recital. It was my first time seeing Aasiyah and Gavin in person, and it was full of anticlimactic small talk. Afterwards, we went out to eat with Gavin's family, full of wonderful characters, and I began to get more socially comfortable. Gavin and I had both met Aasiyah through an online community that she helped create, and thinking of it causes me to reflect on modern miracles as well as fate and shared destiny. The next day was the wedding, and the surrealness of it all hit me the most as they were walking down the aisle together. The sun had chosen that day to break through the clouds. It was shining on the sea, the mountains, and the green hillside where some 40-odd people made up of families and vagabonds had been brought together, where multiple people's lives were forever linked, where two lovers were brought together in union because a man named Jamie had posted a video about the universe observing itself 2 years ago. Afterwards, everyone slowly trickled across town to their friend Richard's place, where he had just constructed a spacious pickleball court. This would be the venue for the reception. He had a beautiful property overlooking the bay, and it inspired much envy in my heart. Rump's Barbecue, the food truck Gavin worked at, supplied catering to the event. We took photos on Richard's large back porch, and then afterwards, another friend named Sam played the accordion and sang proudly while we danced. He embodied every association I have with the word minstrel. Everything was community sourced, and not a single person who contributed to the affair was a stranger. There were 2 days where the clouds held their grip on Homer, and my fearful instincts began to spread through me. I saw very little of Aasiyah and the wonderful people I had met at her wedding. I bailed on loose plans to see a national park with her brother. I spent most of my time in bed and indoors. I got microwavable food at the store instead of cooking my meals. While insignificant in a larger scope, this behavior still hurts to look back on because it came from the depths of other experiences. Hiking a glacier in Kenai Fjords or hiking the Diamond Ridge Trail in town were opportunities to explore the world that I did not take. There is, however, an intimacy you build with a place when you find out how it holds you in darkness. My mind was truly a sullen place for a while, yet I cannot in good faith reject the experience, and it is worth noting the positives as well. The first morning of these 2 days, Aasiyah and I jumped into the ocean together and shared a great conversation while warming up. During the second day, I went for a long drive down the peninsula while listening to sad music. I felt cared for in this moment by the softness of the clouds and the quiet way in which life moved on. There were just as many boats in the bay and as many birds flying past them. There were just as many waves upon the shore and smooth rocks catching them on the beach. All of them were dimmer, but they did not change their nature. I didn't either, in fact. I remember dancing in public, undeterred by my lack of energy. These positives did not make me happy. They made me whole. And even now, when I wonder what the Kenai Glacier feels like beneath my feet, I can still touch the sullen place where I used to be. The day I left, I met the two newlyweds 2 hours north for a hike hidden in Aasiyah's ski resort. We saw a waterfall and dipped our feet in its pool. We walked a ways around the base of the mountain and had a vibrant conversation within the many perspectives we've found in life. I find life is strange. The more we try to understand it, the less it makes sense, and the more we let go of reason to fall into faith, the more we are caught by the fabric of reality. We are each reflections of life, and relationships bear some of this strangeness as well. Sometimes you will be rewarded for sticking by someone. Sometimes you will find freedom when you let them go. Sometimes the people you are looking for are across the world. Sometimes they are across the street. Sometimes the ways we hurt each other are through simple misunderstandings, and being truly understood just once can make up for all of it. I have less stories from the leg of the trip home. During this time, I reflected quite a bit, but I also became desperate to finish the journey for a few different reasons. My days were filled with driving, and I made less stops for hiking and other adventures. Most notable were my last 2 campsites before I stayed with friends in Salt Lake City. I made sure to take it all in and to appreciate the wonders of the natural world, which I would soon be leaving. The story of my road trip to Alaska ended when I arrived back in St. George, Utah, but the story of how it changed me is linked to this work of art. I wrote the intro for this video on the second to last day of the trip. It took me a week to reapproach my work for the first time and 2 months to write the majority of this script. In the beginning of last October, I quietly abandoned this project as it had become too painful for me to accept how much I had been avoiding it. My determination was refueled in December after reflecting on the year and realizing that if I didn't force this to happen, it would never be complete. This entire process has involved oscillating between avoidance and acceptance. I was avoiding and accepting my desire to complete this project, but simultaneously I have been avoiding and accepting the ease at which I could be living and did live with during my time on the road. Engaging with this essay has demanded me to confront how much I avoid simple truths in my daily life, and the one that has resonated with me most over time is this: living life exactly the way we want demands one thing from us: courage. We can give up the resistance we feel to work every day. We can give up the reliance we have on other people for approval. We can give up our need for comfort. We can give up our attachment to suffering. All it requires is the courage to be fully alive in every moment. This involves choices that seem unbearable until they've been made, and answers that come to us the moment we embrace uncertainty. The liberation and power we feel in life is equal to or more than the fear we have had to overcome. It is the reward for bravery, while the cost for cowardice is captivity. Here is a consequence that I fear. You never understand this video in the way I want you to. Here is a consequence for submitting to cowardice. This video never gets made, and you never see it. I cannot avoid the risk of you misunderstanding me. As I said earlier, I can either accept or avoid, and in avoidance, I would not be better understood. We all share this dilemma of cowardice and fear. In the Western imperialist world, we act like each day death cannot reach us, but it does. Death comes in as many forms as life. For me, it took the form of faded holidays spent in bed, and a spiritual exhaustion from a life that did not belong to me. What form does death take in your life? What version of you died to keep your body alive? What life have you sacrificed to keep your current position in the world? It is not until we face life as boldly as the oppressed do that we can truly be free. I had the capability to complete a video like this within a month, but the bravery to complete it in 6. I am not mad about this, it is simply reality. Besides, 6 months is certainly less time than some of us take to liberate ourselves. Perhaps if that night under the stars was the first time I had observed my change, the release of this video will have marked the acceptance of it.